Hey, it's Andre and the bench is out. That means unboxing and build time. Today we have two Durafly Bf.109 Messerschmitts. Basically, this is the Battle of Britain scheme, which I've built up and applied some decals to already. It is an 1100mm plane and takes either 3S or 4S 2200. So the next one to build is obviously the Desert Scheme one. So stay tuned as we pull this guy off the bench and bring out the box for the other one. Okay, as you will have seen from social media, I had already unboxed both airplanes to have a look at them, and they come really well set up in the box. There's nice spots for everything. What you will want to take note of when you're opening the box is the fact that underneath there are a bunch of pieces of equipment, and so pay particular attention to that. So everything comes nice and sealed, and you'll see on the bottom of the cardboard there's a piece of cardboard that comes in. There's a few other pieces. So we'll very quickly go through what comes in the package and get rid of the styrofoam. So obviously your canopy, your bits, a lot of your trim pieces, your bomb drop, all your hardware including a screwdriver, some other trim pieces, your main fuselage without the elevator attached. I've already done that, but I will have to put in the screws and glue in the supports, a snazzy spinner, your 11 by 3 inch, your 11 by 3 blade prop in a nice container, but you can get rid of the foam because it makes all kinds of nasty noise. Speaking of nasty noise, excuse the printer, it's actually busy printing out a Spitfire. So the biggest thing I discovered while printing up this airplane, or not printing up this airplane, that's funny, while doing the airplane on the previous one was using foam tack took a long time to get all the glue to set up and everything. So I will be using CA and Kicker to speed things up on this build. You have your exhaust stacks and your intakes and some other little scale pieces. That's your screws for your prop adapter and a bomb. The exhaust axes are labeled. One side's left and the other is obviously not. Scissors. The packaging was actually really well done. Both my airplane models arrived with no issues, so I was quite happy to see that. This is the left side. Looks good. All right. Yeah, way faster than using foam tack. I like foam tack, but boy, it got exhausting holding the parts all down. So quick and easy with a little bit of CA. Next exhaust piece. Assembly-wise, it's 2 screws in the back for the elevator, and then 4 for the wing, for the main wing, and that's it. So it is a very simple, effective build, and it comes together quite cleanly and quickly. I think you spend more time doing your glue and glue parts on it and the decal job, but you take your time doing the decals, obviously, and the results are really quite nice. So. Oops. There we go. That stayed down nice and tight. A lot faster than the going off the other method. They actually come with spare screws. Thank you, Hobby King. That's a rare treat these days, I find. The one thing I did notice, you want to take some time to clear the rear tail wheel assembly and the paint. There seems to be, I found a little bit of contact there on the last plane, so I've just been cleaning that up. Magnetic tip for everybody who's been bugging me to use a magnetic tip screwdriver. Look. And with every control surface, remember to flex them. This one comes with a spar piece that goes on and through, and everything sits up really nice and quickly. First is the elevator. So that's centered. And I need my 1.5 millimeter tool. There it is. So, it's loose, great. So inside, your two servos for the rear, your elevator and rudder. So all I've done is center the servo, slacked off the grub screw, and then it's just very quickly popping that in, making sure it's straight. I find these, although you can use, I do have the tool appropriate for it, I find I end up doing more carnage to the upright, control horn, if anything else. So I tend to just use my hands and just pressure them on nice and cleanly, or as cleanly as I can. It's one of those, work it on really slow and just, you'll hear the pop when it goes in. Ta-da, it's on. Center it up, nice and flush. And the rest will be just trimming it. Oh, 150. There you go. Always verify that your control surfaces are centered. It's annoying to have. Actually, it's not that bad to take the wing off and redo it if you have to. So I have noticed, 4 screws and it's out. It does have a little PCB board, which we'll show after once we're ready to go. All right, rudder. Moving right along. All right, 150, at least that. Check all that. I had already flexed all these control surfaces before I started, so they're nice and clean. And then, as I said, just really nice. Work that on with your hand, and it will pop in cleanly. Because always my concern with these kind of pop-style connectors is just putting too much pressure on the arm itself. I've broken them before using a tool, so I'm like, just do them by hand. They'll eventually work their way down. If you have to, you can disassemble them, but I don't think they're as good once they're disassembled. Okay, they do rotate over if you have a lot of issues with them. And next, center that up. Okay, nice and straight. Looks good, looks clean. That's in, all right. 1.5 mil tool. Flip the whole thing over again. Tighten it down. I like to get in there and support the line. Tighten, all right. 150 straight. Beautiful. There, that process is done. On to the next gluing stage. So the tail section come with 2 uprights, and they keep everything nice and secure, and they're notched to go around the spar that's in there. And I just found it was easier to insert into the fuselage and then redirect into the wing. A little bit of CA. A little too much CA. I don't think we need a whole lot. And then a little bit of kicker. And all I'm going to do is just hold it in place and let everything set up nice and stiff, and then move on to the next one. I still think I'm more a fan of the foam tack method. I think it comes out cleaner, but this is definitely a lot faster way to secure everything in place. Great, it's set up fast. There we go. Looks good to me. A little further away from the camera, huh? I mean, there are a bunch of scale detail pieces that you can put on with the kit, but I've just been kind of burning past them because I end up just knocking them off. What I do like is this little detail where they've set the little antenna piece on the cockpit, and you don't actually have to glue it on, because every time I stick these things in racks or everything, I end up breaking them off or whatever. So it's kind of neat that you can just pop that off. So if you desire not to, the other decal pieces, or sorry, scale detail pieces, are two slots pieces that go onto the intakes, and some other little trim pieces, antennas and stuff. This is just stuff I end up just knocking off, so I don't tend to put them on. So onto the wing. The first thing we're going to do is the scoops. One interesting fact is I looked at this airplane and considered whether it would be interesting to use it as a belly lander. And I decided that it would be okay, but you would have a lot of issues with the control surfaces. I think you would end up breaking off your pieces for your wings and the ailerons and so on. So I decided I'm not going to worry about that. And these go in two very particular locations based on the cutouts of the pieces. Now, that one goes there, that one goes there. And one thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're clearing your flaps as you're setting this up. So, one at a time, a little CA, a little kicker, and we're in business. Backwards. Okay, push it into position, lock it in, hold it down, make sure for clearance, good clearance, and just let that all set up, and we're gold. There is a little trim piece, and like I said, when I was testing it, I didn't like how it fits, so I'm just leaving them off. I don't think it makes much of a difference. Centered on my servo controller, and go to ailerons. Nice. And according to the manual, it is the top control horn over. I usually grab these guys as close to the base as I can, just to avoid any plastic carnage. There we go. Secure. Again, once you've assembled it, even afterwards, you may have to do some fine tuning when you're actually on the radio. And you always want to check all your links even before flights. Was that check your crap? Next, the flaps. The flaps, they say to back the position right up. And I was using about 210 on my servo tester, and that seemed to be a good position. Obviously, when I put it on the radio, I'll fine-tune that as well. That's pretty good, actually. Okay, so with the wing all set up, all we need to do now is make sure we drop in everything nice and clean and avoid any kind of cable snagging and sitting underneath the wing surface so everything sits nice and flush. And again, the forward screws are the thicker 4x10s and the back screw are the 3x10s. So all I'm doing right now is just moving the model around. The board in the back, the connection board, the biggest thing you're going to want to do is as you're pulling through the wiring through is make sure it's the LED lights that I've noticed get snagged up from time to time. And you just want to get in there, tug on them, make sure they follow through and that they're not sitting underneath the wing surface. So I've got them all nice and secure. Everything sit nice and flush. Flip the plane over again. And again, the 410s go up front, and in the back, you have the 3x10s. And I like to do the star pattern again, or the X pattern in this case. And just distribute the load over everything. And you do not have to over tighten these, you just have to lock them in nice and clean. And presto, we now have a freestanding airplane. For the decal process, you will need scissors, X-Acto knife, your trusty iron. I've got mine set to about 3.5 for heat. Clean white cloth to help along. I don't put the booty on the iron anymore, just use the cloth and you'll see. And your selected decal style that you would like to go with. I start off with the Luftwaffe, ever say that right, scheme on the body first and then move on to the wings. So let's jump into the fuselage and start. I use the box as my reference and count the lines and line up from the paint scheme and everything. And you'll see how I go. So from the center line, or from the antenna line, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and then I use the paint line as my level, center everything up, and I like to put the forward edge there. This one I offset because there's a little antenna bit, so you want to be cognizant of that. But on the other side, I will use the rib line of the material, the detail line as my guide, and I'm using the paint line as my level. The only thing I will say is be very delicate when using the transfer, so you don't pull up any paint. And if you do, silver marker, and you know, no one's the wiser. A little bit of pressure. Get everything to sit down, and then you find a corner you can pull for the top transfer and just start working everything off. And I just take my time, and I've had a lot of good success getting the last couple graphics down with almost no carnage. And just work the decal in, and then we'll put the heat on it, and that locks it down really nicely. Again, angle pull, and just work down any of the edges that lift. And there we go. Number one, discard that material. Where's my garbage can? Okay, my iron is set to 3.5. Obviously, a little bit. I had it at 4, and I was picking up some bubbling on the skin, and I didn't want to do that. Again, I don't use the boot. I just put the decal on, or sorry, the cloth over the decal and iron it down in a couple runs, and it usually is pretty good. And again, in the light, when I flip and everything more oriented towards me, I can see the actual decal under the cloth and hit it nicely. Again, you just want to go over and really make sure your edges are down. That way no wind can get in there and lift it up. And they go on pretty darn quick. I had a few issues, like I said, in the Friday Flying update where I was scratching, pulling the paint off. And really, like I said, I grab a silver marker, touch it up, and you don't notice the difference. I don't tend to put all the decals on either, because I find after a while it's a little too tedious, so the main ones go on, and I think it looks really nice once it's on there. So next one on this side will be the number 8. And going off the box, that is number 2 over, and I will try and line it all up so it's nice and centered. So that's this guy here, and I tend to, I'll probably end up favoring the middle of the line instead. And I think that'll look okay. Yeah, because the nose decal's on the front, there's nothing else there, so why not, right? Use the line, a detail line, as a reference point. So I will move the aircraft around a little bit so I have a little bit more room. Woohoo! Nice and clean. Number 8. Okay, up next is the front cowl decal. The looks like a cat, and that sits right over top of the scoop, just before the front cowl. So, what I like to do with these is, because the graphics are actually cut out in more of a square, it's kind of handy because you can use the aircraft lines. I'm trying to find a way to present this to the camera, but I tend to use the graphic lines, so about there and there, and stick it. Don't take your time lining the graphic up, and avoid, this will avoid you accidentally peeling any of the paint off the foam. There we go. See, that's what I was talking about, a little bit of lift on that paint. So, like I said, I'll touch that up after with my silver marker. It just looks like a ding against the paint and aluminum underneath. All right, a little bit of heat. And I guess the nice thing with the decals is you can go as far with them as you want, and I'm sure Cali Graphics has got some pretty swanky stuff for this aircraft as well. Silver Sharpie, just a little, fill those in, and then a smudge, maybe even some black, but look, something happened in service, so it's going to happen. The plane's going to see scars and battle dings and everything, so I'm not too bent up about it. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we set them up forward and then right on that line, nice and level. Try not to move them around too much, and then lay them down nice and smooth. Okay, and then while promoting a little bit of adhesion, start peeling them back nice and easy. There you go. Run over with your finger again. Make sure you've got all the pockets out and it's locked down nice and clean. Again, this sits off the front cowl, and use the decal shape as your reference. So off the front, and then that feature line there, and then just set it up nice and smooth. Peel it off, setting the graphic down. Nice and easy, nice and easy. And yeah, that one came off a lot cleaner than the last one, didn't it? That's sweet. All right, this one, I use a couple detail lines. I line it up on the top of the wing. There's a detail along here. And then I use the bottom corner of the, between the flap and the aileron as my divide. So I kind of just angle it, lock it down. And I found that looked really nice. So again, right in that corner, but using that trim line along here to help me align everything. All right. I always run the heat and then run my hand over it afterwards to make sure everything sits down nice and smooth. These are nice graphics, and they just seem to, once you put that little bit of heat, they really seem to lock down really well. So, all right, other wing. Quick shot with the iron to cure it on. Come back afterwards with your hand and really quickly check for any lifts. That looks great. Excellent. All right. Again, I use the lines as references and just triangulated it off the points. Again, using the wings detail lines right along there, lining up to that seam. And again, light lift and just guide the decal along. Doesn't that look awesome? All I left now is put on the spinner. You will have to balance that prop. They come unbalanced. It's the 3 blades, so you have to sit there and fiddle around and do that and get them going. But otherwise, all you have to do afterwards is check the CG, which is 60 millimeters back from the wing, and set up your servos and everything, and your throws and your rates, which are all in the manual. The spinner is keyed. The nice thing is you could get away with probably running a 2-bladed prop on this one as well if you so desired. 10 millimeter bit. A single screw for the spinner, which is kind of nice. So, you know, it's versus some of the multi-screw ones. Didn't these things turn out amazing? The Durafly Messerschmidt Bf.109. As you can see, the Battle Britain one, I put some extra of the decals on, and I think it really sets the aircraft up nicely. But I'm not going to do too many of them. I will finish them off the rest in the desert cam pattern. But I don't tend to put all of them on because it's just too much graphic, and I think I ended up just ironing the airplane a little too much. Again, you will need a nice 7-channel receiver, ailerons, elevator, throttle, rudder, gear, flaps, and bomb drop. These are my preferred go-to for non-telemetry, nice FR Sky radio. 4S2200 is the recommended battery. Balance those 3-bladed prop. Your CG is 60 millimeters back from the leading edge. And don't forget to set up all your control surfaces as per the manual spec. The one flying tip I got from Steve was on touchdown. Pull those flaps up right away and plant that tail, otherwise you run into the problem of the classic 109 tipping over. Again, from Hobby King, the Durafly Messerschmidt Bf.109. I'm Andre. Thanks for watching the quick little build. Hope you had fun. I can't wait to go flying.